Well, welcome back to AspireVue Hot Topics, where in 10 minutes or less, we unpack a leadership thought to equip and serve you on your leadership journey. I'm joined by Dr. Larry Kuhn, founder and creator of AspireVue, and this is part 3 of our series, Making Change Sustainable.
The next thing that I'd like to talk about is a model of change that's called the trans-theoretical model of change. I went back to graduate school when I was 41 and had the crazy idea to get my master's, my doctorate, my license. I mean, it was a 9-year process. And I went to internship, and one of the things that they asked us to do in our psychology internship was to create for ourselves a model of change. And I'm like, a model of change? And they said something interesting. They said, how you define health and how you define sickness, both of those two things, pathology or well-being, both of those strongly inform your therapy, what you do about it, your intervention. Right. So before you start practicing interventions, you better have some good theory that guides your thinking. And so I put that together, and I found an interesting theory which was called the trans-theoretical model. Big name, but it was actually put together by a couple of folks, Prochaska and DiClemente. And they did some study, and they looked at how people changed, specifically when they were wanting to change their drinking habits. And there were some people that just the 12-step process didn't really work for them, but they wanted to help them somehow. And they actually looked at, not just through the lens of that type of change, but pretty much any change that we go through, kind of a 5-stage process. I was so intrigued by that, that I named my company Prepare to Change after one of those phases. So those phases are pre-contemplation. This is when you're not ready to change at all. You don't even know you need to change. Sure. It's everybody else's problem, and you're pretty much living in denial that there has to be a change. But then you hit the wall and you begin to move to the second stage, which is contemplation. Now I'm thinking, maybe I need to change. I have consciousness raising that occurs. I start thinking about the pros of changing and maybe the cons of not changing. When I'm sitting and having what we call a motivational interview with someone about drinking, you start asking them, well, what is it? What do you like about drinking? And they say all the things they like about drinking. And then you ask them, well, what are some of the costs? And they're like, well, I don't get to see my kids anymore because I lost my license. I mean, the costs are pretty great. And there's a lot of discrepancy. And in that stage, people are beginning to move toward the next stage, which is preparation. Prepare to change is when people, basically within the next 3 months or so, are going to be actively moving to take some steps to change. So it is about, at that point, connecting with someone in a helping relationship, doing the opposite of what they used to always do, but they kind of hit the wall, but they still have a hope that maybe if I do something a little different, the outcome will change. And it's true. That's prepare to change. And that's the type of people that I like connecting with when they're ready. Next is action. When people are actually taking the steps, they are engaging, they're implementing, they're operationalizing, they're executing. Translational execution, when they move it from an idea to where the rubber meets the road, and they are making some active changes. Notice this is not the first stage. Those other stages all build up to that. And finally, then after the action stage is the maintenance stage. And this is where I would call it sustainable change, realizing that relapse is always a part of that. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There's always going to be challenges that people have, but true change is an evolutionary process that is gradual, incremental, small enough that it's bite-sized and very doable, but it is also trackable, and you can see the evidence of progress that you're making.
Wow.
So that's the trans-theoretical model of change. I thought I would pass that along to you. Any thoughts about that, Luke? I know you were probably this is one of the first time you were exposed to that idea.
It's so helpful to one, even know that some of this stuff has been studied and pulled apart, and a real look under the hood as to why we humans are the way that we are, but also to have a model that says, I'm so quick to jump to action, or if I want to change something, well, why can't I just do it? I want to be built on achievement, and I think I'm capable enough and strong enough. And it so often leads to that deflating feeling of not being able to stick with it, or wondering why I couldn't permanently make that change. And so to know that the model really speaks to some of those things is so helpful.
Well, that's why I wanted to do this at this juncture, truthfully, because here we are launching AspireVue, and a lot of the theory that I just talked about strongly informs what we're doing. If people really want to fundamentally change, they can, but they need to have resources. They need to have a plan. They need to be incremental, intentional in some way. They need to deliver it, but they need to really prepare and not just wish it and then wonder why you couldn't get it done. And I think that's where people become discouraged. So I think one of the keys to sustainable change is all those things, but also being able to observe well and know, right, where am I, and have good insight into this is the stage, or this is kind of where I'm moving, so I can say this is what I would like, and be able to say this is what I want.
Yeah.
A lot of times people don't even know what they want. They just want to change, but they don't know. They just want it to be different.
That's right.
The last one.
To hear more of this conversation about making change sustainable, as well as other hot topics in the Psychology of Impact series, be sure to subscribe to this channel. To learn more about AspireVue, you can check us out online at AspireVue.com.